Like magic. Like magic, people. There will be baby formula back in our lives. Isn't that amazing? It only took millions of parents saying, "How in the hell am I going to feed my kid?" And lo and behold, we work out a deal with Abbott Laboratories, and we're going to get that facility that the FDA has kept closed for 3 months back open. That's can we just get a little hand? Isn't that just a dream come true? Welcome everybody. Great to be with you. I'm Tony Katz, and boom, presented by Americans for Prosperity. That's who sponsors this great show. We're changing the name of the show. That's a whole another subject for another day. I wanted to get into what's going on in Pennsylvania with the primary, because the primary is just nuts. And what the Republicans may have very well done to themselves with this is just pure on madness. First, just wanted to take a real quick check at the markets right there with the Dow up 305, the NASDAQ up 180. People thinking there's some good buys and maybe we've hit bottom. I don't know who thinks this. I don't know who feels this or believes this, that somehow we've hit the bottom and it's all over and everything now is just good and sweet and kind and loving. And oh my gosh, nothing but great markets and great times ahead of us. I don't know who believes this. I have no idea who believes this and who doesn't. Me, I didn't do much of that. I mean, should I even take a look? Should I even bother looking at where crypto markets are? Yeah, I like crypto. I am not somebody, I'm not Charlie Munger. I'm not Warren Buffett, and maybe I should be listening to them. But there's no doubt that this idea of cryptocurrency has a value. Blockchain has a value. I'm sold. I'm in. I'm down on it 150%. My market, my crypto's not looking very. I will not be retiring today, I believe, is the answer that we were all going for. But I love that they came to this deal, that the Abbott people are now going to be able to reopen the facility right there and produce formula. What we've learned from this is the really very screwed up way government does things and how government is not always a force for good, or if ever a force for good. A government is an impediment to a lot of great opportunity. The idea that we contract out who can do formula by state, and it's all because of the way we do government programs like via WIC, women, infants, children. That's not a strategy. That is remarkably ugly stuff, and that you can't get competition going because you only have one person and one source. Haven't we learned that competition is good? And then we heard Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg say, "Hey, remember, we're a capitalist country." He wasn't talking up capitalism, as if somehow capitalism was the problem. Look, Abbott Labs, what the claim was that they had tainted formula that led to the deaths of 2 infants. They'll tell you that they've done every study and none of it links back to them. Absolutely none of it. And they believe that the FDA studies of what happened does as well. So why was the plant closed for 3 months? You're going to close it down, figure out what happens. I think people can accept that on a baseline, that you're going to close something down to see what it is that went on and see what you can do to fix things if they need fixing, and they clean the whole place. But now, if it's been an extra month that you've kept it shut down, the question is why. It took parents screaming, crying, yelling to get your attention, and you claim that you've known about this for months and you've had this under control for months. You didn't. That's a lie. It's a lie to say that you had this under control. It's a lie to say you've been working on this for a while, that's your top priority. It's not your top priority. That's obvious. And Americans see this. And one of the things that will always blow my mind is that, on the radio shows, I've been discussing you should check with your doctor, but, people do make their own baby food, make their own formula. How do you think people survived? How do you think kids ate before Abbott Labs had a plant that could be shut down by the FDA? And people are like, "Oh, you can't make your own baby formula." I said check with your doctor. I think that's the rational course. That's what reasonable people do. Why in the world can you not check with your doctor? Why can't you make your own formula? Of course you can make your own formula. the idea of reliance on government and on the systems versus this, we could do this, we can handle this on our own. I'm not saying it isn't easier. I'm not even saying that people never thought about in America where you couldn't find baby formula. Okay, maybe this store was out and the other store had it, but every store was out. And then you learn about how they engage in this distribution of formula, and you realize that it's beyond monopolistic. It doesn't involve any level of actual capitalism. It involves government control. And government control leads to worse outcomes for the people that government controls. We've proven it, I think, in every single place we've looked at it. We've proven this again and again and again. I'm only happy that hopefully it'll get back on the shelves soon, and parents will be, they'll get a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of safety, knowing that, okay, they can feed their kids, which is, well, serious issue. Primaries in Pennsylvania is where it's at right now. And this right here is what we're looking at. This is the Real Clear Politics average of where these primaries are. Look at that right there. Pennsylvania Senate. That's what we're focused on. And in this Pennsylvania Senate race, right, we've got Dr. Oz, we've got Kathy Barnett, we've got David McCormick. And what we really have is an opportunity for the Republican Party to mess this up in a way that is simply obscene. That's what we have. So we reached out to Chris Stigall, who is, where is he? He's right there. Look at him. That's a handsome guy. My God, he shaved a little bit for the occasion and everything. Chris, what's going on, man?
Hi.
There you go. You got a microphone working.
There we go. Hi, buddy.
Hey, man.
Sorry about that.
We are live as we speak now. Chris Stigall, ChrisStigall.com. You can find him over there at The Answer, AM 990 in Philadelphia. So here's how outside of Pennsylvania looks at this race, Chris.
Yes,
they
sir.
look at it and they say to themselves, holy crap, is this messed up? Because we've got one celebrity, one guy who looks the part of the perfect Republican, and then we've got this woman who we would rationally be excited about, yet we don't know a damn thing about her, and she kind of hides who she is. So Let's start with the basics. Let's go through these three main candidates: Oz, Barnett, or Barrett, and McCormick. Who are these three people?
Yeah, I'll start with the most obvious one, and that's Dr. Mehmet Oz, who is the most famous by a lot. He's the Trump favorite, of course. He's known for 15 years of syndicated television. The problem, if I could say there's a problem for Dr. Oz, is that, and this also goes for Dave McCormick, these are two guys that Pennsylvanians feel like, where you been? Where you been? I mean, you say you're Pennsylvanians, but you haven't lived in Pennsylvania. Mehmet Oz has been a syndicated TV host, so to be fair, I mean, of course, he's not doing his shows in Pennsylvania. He has in-laws there. He went to Penn Medicine there, I think. His wife's from there. There's some question as to how long he's actually called Pennsylvania home. As for Dave McCormick, he's a seventh-generation Pennsylvanian, but he spent a lot of his time in Connecticut, where he's been a hedge fund guy. Kathy Barnett is somebody who is not new to me. She's not new to my audience because we've been interviewing her for the last 2 years. She ran for Congress on the House side unsuccessfully, and a lot of people have attacked her for that and said, well, she lost by almost 20 points. And I say to that, well, yeah, she did, but so did Donald Trump. He lost that district she ran in worse by 26 points. So I've tried really hard to be neutral on this thing, Tony. I have not taken a position. I've not endorsed. They've all come on the show. In fact, just this morning, they all came on my show again. Kathy has certainly given me most time. I've spent more time. Our listeners have spent more time with Kathy than any other. She surged, though, Tony, very simply for one reason, and that's Dr. Oz. Because he's famous and because the nation was keyed in on this because of Oz and Trump's fame, people watch these debates. And Kathy Barnett sort of exploded onto the scene, and everybody went, who is this woman? I mean, truth is, she's been running for 13 months, but nobody heard of her until national media started watching these debates. Yeah, Oz sort of created her.
But isn't there a part two to Kathy Barnett? We'll get into Oz's inabilities in a second. Isn't there a thing about Kathy Barnett, right? There's a military background to Kathy Barnett. There's a there are things that you can applaud and like, but she's worked almost extra hard, Chris, to keep herself kind of hidden, to keep her backgrounds kind of hidden. She's got a horrible personal story in terms of a childhood rape, as it's described, and she describes it, and then goes on to what we would consider to be great things, but it's kind of hard to find. Jim Garrity of National Review has written about it. Selena Zito, Washington Examiner, has written about it. Does Pennsylvania think she's hiding something, or does Pennsylvania think that it's just one of those things that we don't really care about that stuff? We care about what you'll do for us right now.
I think it's the latter. I mean, I would be presumptuous of me to say I'd love to believe that all my listeners represent the entirety of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Not the case, I know. And that's not to say that universally there are no listeners of mine that aren't suspicious of Kathy Barnett.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, what I find anecdotally, my observations, at least in my audience, seem to suggest that the more people attack Kathy, the more hardened her support becomes. It's like they love Trump. They love Trump. And Trump came to, Pennsylvania a couple of weeks ago for Oz. Big field, big attendance, people cheering Trump. And then Oz rolls out and there's a smattering of boos. Something's not connecting there. And Barnett is surging, and she's connecting because people view her as authentic, much like they viewed Trump as authentic in 2016. And the more people say, she can't win, she's mysterious, she says indelicate things, she's not well prepped, she's going to get killed, the more people hammer her, particularly cable news hosts, tell Pennsylvanians who can win and can't win. My audience is starting to get kind of ticked off at that, to be honest.
Wait, hold on. If you're going to call out cable news hosts, I might as well burn the bridges with you. Who is causing the problems for you?
Not me. I'm just saying there are a couple of cable news hosts out there that are so hardened in their support for Oz and so committed to trashing Kathy Barnett.
So
I will tell you that my
audience.
audience.
Up their nose?
Pardon?
So no one with a cork up their nose?
Which
is one of the, that was Mark Levin on Laura Ingraham. It was one of the more interesting lines I'd ever heard, because I had never heard anybody refer to somebody else as having a cork up their nose. I almost want to email the man, I don't know him, and be like, what does that mean? Where does that come from?
Okay, good. So you don't, I was trying to think of what that meant. You don't know either. Okay,
no,
good.
Never heard that a day in my life. That did not come up in Brooklyn once. Chris Stigall from AM 990, The Answer in Philadelphia. The Dr. Oz thing, right? The Trump endorsement of Dr. Oz, big deal, massive deal. That's a mover and a shaker. People want that endorsement. What is it that he hasn't shown in debates or in the retail politicking that has people saying, yeah, he's got name, but that's not enough for me?
I hate saying this way because it sounds so kind of simple. But there's something about his fame that's working against him. Dave McCormick and Oz have this issue with their, for the better part of several months, they've come into the campaign with tons and tons of money. Most estimates put it at somewhere between $60 and $80 million those two men have spent shooting at one another exclusively. And Dave McCormick's a huge hedge fund guy, very wealthy. Oz, obviously, a very famous TV guy, very wealthy. All that wealth and all that money and all that firing back and forth, this particular voter base seemed to be so turned off by them both. And you had some lesser tiered candidates who were regularly making appearances on shows like mine saying, where have these guys been? All their money, they parachute in from out of nowhere. They're spending a ton of cash trying to convince you they're authentic Pennsylvanians. Where have they been? We've been here. Where have they been? It's worked. Like, there's something about Oz. There's nothing wrong with him. I mean, he says everything right every time. He never stumbles. He never stammers. He never doesn't have an answer. He never doesn't make sense. He's never not charming. He's always personable. And yet, for some reason, all I hear is, I don't trust him. I don't believe him. He's Oprah's friend. He's an Hollywood guy. He's got all these TV clips we've seen. I don't trust him. And right. You would look at him, and I understand Trump's decision-making here. He's famous. He can go into Black Philadelphia, female Philadelphia, and connect because he's famous and on TV. And he's even admitted to me today, does that come into play? Is that important? He says, oh, yeah, sure it is. And it is. It does matter. Sorry if that's cynical, but it's true. So I get it. Trump may want to run in 2024. He needs Pennsylvania, and he thinks Oz is somebody that could help him. That's my
How much
calculation.
How much of Oz is this? Oh, he's just a rhino. Oh, look at his past history. Oh, he's just changing for this election. How much of it is that?
Huge. That's
Really?
I've heard people say he's Mitt Romney on TV, like he's a TV version of Mitt Romney, a TV doctor version of Mitt Romney, more than maybe any other criticism. They're confident he's going to sell out the second he gets to the Senate.
Like
my audience. I hate to sound like I'm
like-
speaking for all Pennsylvania Republican voters. He may well win today, Tony. He may win. He
define
may
a
win by a
sellout.
lot.
Hold on. Define sellout. What do they think specifically that Oz is going to do? He gets to the Senate. He's got his nice suit on. He's sworn in. And the first thing he does is what?
Vote with Mitch McConnell. There's such anger at Mitch McConnell, for instance. Bailing out, sending $40 billion to Ukraine, maybe as an example. It's interesting. I mean, you couldn't say he'd vote to, like Pat Toomey, the guy that's leaving. Pat Toomey, the Republican, voted to impeach Donald Trump the second time, for instance. So Pennsylvania Republicans are really soured and mistrustful of the Republican brand right now, and they don't want anybody going there to play nice with Mitch McConnell. They've made that clear. And so they think he's going to be a parliament. And one of the things he said, his very first appearance on my show, I asked him what he thought about Mitch McConnell. He said, well, I think he's done some very good things. And so naturally that was made an ad that ran all over Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz thinks Mitch McConnell has done some very good things.
Oh, look at you auditioning. Now in a world where Dr. Oz thinks Mitch McConnell has done very good things.
I mean, I don't think it's outrageous to say Mitch McConnell's done good things. I think he has too. I don't think that's unfair, but boy, that seemed to stick to him. And like now people feel like he's going to be his pal and not toss him out. But I think the same can be said about Dave McCormick. Here's the thing, Tony, what I haven't mentioned, there's like, depending on the poll you read, 10 to 15% undecided. So you have these three candidates with some soft support and then another 10 that are tied, virtually tied.
Right.
And then 10 to 15% who haven't made up their mind yet. Literally any of these three could win tomorrow, and it wouldn't surprise me.
So this is the Real Clear Politics average right here that has Oz at 26.8, Barnett at 24.2, and McCormick at 19.6, even though in the last two polls he was in the 20s there with this. If you're calling this thing, man, as you're as much of a prognosticator as I am or anybody else is, which one is easiest for Pennsylvania Republicans to get to the victory line with in a general? Because that's the question. Everything else is nonsense. Who gets the general? Who picks up anybody who may not like the Democrat in Pittsburgh or in Western Pennsylvania and Toto?
Here's what I think first ought to be said and isn't being said enough. John Fetterman is a terrible candidate and a terrible Democrat, and the Democrat Party is terrible. The executive branch—
He's got 50% of the vote, according to the polls. The Democrat.
He's not. It's not even gonna come close. The guy's an oaf. I mean, he's like a 7 foot tall. Not there's anything wrong with being bald, but he's bald. He's got the goatee. He looks like he's from. He's like. He looks like Daughtry on a bender from 1998 or something. It's just it's not a good look. I don't quite understand what I mean, this belongs on the radio, Tony. It doesn't belong running for office. He's a goon. He's got a pot flag hanging out his lieutenant governor's office. He's a progressive lunatic. And his boss, Governor Wolf, has destroyed the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I don't know what the guy runs on. So I would just first like to say any of these three Republican candidates ought to be able to kick his ass, quite candidly.
Okay.
Maybe that's not a sufficient answer.
That you think, so you don't think that Barnett has any issues if she gets the nomination with this kind of silent, hidden history? You don't think that comes into play at all? You don't think Oz being, everybody calling him a rhino comes into play with independents that he can't be trusted, et cetera? And McCormick, who plays the part of the perfect Republican, yes, he doesn't get anybody excited out of bed to move at all. You don't think there's one that helps you over the others?
If I were purely, look, if you're holding a gun to my head and saying, who would I bet on having the easiest time of it? It's Mehmet Oz. Who do I
appreciate that argument?
Yeah. So if you just want to make a cynical, who's the easiest sales pitch with the least heavy lift of these three is Mehmet Oz, simply because he's famous. half the work's done for him already.
If Chris Stigall had his druthers, who does Chris Stigall have running against this oaf Daughtry wannabe? Daughtry, but that man is an American treasure.
For who? 1990 something. I guess 2006, maybe 7.
I just want to say that American Idol has a long history of screwing people over. I'm still on Team Justin Guarini. That's all I'm saying.
I was all in on Soul Patrol. That was the one year I watched, and that was Taylor Hicks' year. Big Republican, by the way.
Guy had a voice.
The Salt and Pepper guy. Remember him? Like, I was so happy that an old guy won. I was enchanted that an old guy won American Idol. I loved that.
I think it's interesting that you used the word enchanted, but neither here nor there.
Hey,
Chris Stigall, results start coming in when in Pennsylvania?
The polls close tonight at 7 o'clock. Pennsylvania is very famous for making a mess, but it's a primary, so maybe it won't be that muddled. I would think by 8 o'clock we should have a pretty clear winner. 8, 9 o'clock.
Well, 8, 9 o'clock. Okay, so within
Eastern.
2 hours. So we'll see you at 3:30 in the morning as they're still counting out of Allegheny.
Well, look, conventional wisdom is Democrats want Kathy Barnett and they want Doug Mastriano because they supposedly, the conventional wisdom is the establishment Republican crowd is terrified of them. They're disasters. They'll crash and burn. Democrats will stroll right in. That's the conventional wisdom.
Right.
So,
Doug Mastriano is the gubernatorial candidate. He'll be going up against Shapiro there? Is it Shapiro?
Yeah, Shapiro, the attorney general. And interestingly, he is Donald Trump's pick. Now, what's funny is Doug Mastriano has endorsed for Senate Kathy Barnett.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's all crash and burn.
You've never seen anything like it, man. It's crazy here.
Chris Stigall from AM 990, The Answer in Philadelphia. You can find everything, the podcast, everything the man does at chrisstigall.com or right there. Chris, I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Great to be with you, Tony. Great to see you, my man. Have a great day.
There he goes right there. Just boom and gone, and Godspeed to him. So yeah, we are changing the name of the show. It's because, well, what can I say? I'm mercurial. Like that. Make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you find us also over at Locals, TonyKatz.locals.com, as we're moving the entire world. The TonyKatz.com website is moving over there. We're moving the entire Facebook world over there. Everything is going to Locals, TonyKatz.locals.com. I appreciate you guys being here, and my thanks to Americans for Prosperity. They sponsor the show, and you got to love them. Americans for Prosperity. .org, economic liberty, free speech. These are my things, dear people. Appreciate you, and we will catch you tomorrow. You can catch me at noon at WIBC.com. Take care, guys. I should have taken that down. You be good.